everyone, and welcome to part 2 of my video about subordination. This is about subordinate clauses in linguistics. It's a typology of subordination. So in the last part we talked about complement clauses and adverbial clauses. In this section we're going to talk about relative clauses, which function a little bit differently. So a relative clause is a clause that modifies a noun phrase, which means it acts basically like an adjective. So for example, in the phrase, the cat who liked shoelaces slept, we have a matrix clause, which is their whole sentence again. But unlike what we saw in the last two types of subordinate clauses, where our subordinate clause, he liked shoelaces or who liked shoelaces, modified the verb, the liking of shoelaces in this case is modifying the cat, right? So this is modifying a matrix noun, not the matrix verb. And this is what makes relative clauses and complement clauses different, right? Relative clauses act like adjectives. Cross-linguistically, we'll find that some relative clauses occur before the noun they modify and some occur after the noun they modify. So the ones that occur before the noun they modify, in which case it would be who liked shoelaces, the cat slept, is called a prenominal. And if they follow the noun, like in English, the cat who liked shoelaces slept, it's called a postnominal relative. There are two types of relative clauses. Restricted relatives and unrestricted relatives. You can think of them as no commas relatives and with commas relatives. So if you have the sentence, the cat who liked, or the noun phrase, the cat who liked shoelaces, there are two ways we can say this in English. We can say the cat who liked shoelaces, or we can say the cat who liked shoelaces. And there's a difference in these, right? So a restrictive relative clause says the cat who liked shoelaces. We have to pick out of a whole selection of cats. This says you have to pick the one with shoelaces. This one just says we've picked a cat already, and by the way, he happened to have shoelaces, or happened to like shoelaces, have shoelaces, right? So this is a restricted relative, says you have to pick the one who already likes shoelaces. And the unrestricted one says, we've picked a cat, and by the way, he likes shoelaces. Okay. Yes. All right, so if we're looking at the way that a relative clause is put together, we have a head. This is the noun that gets modified, right? So the head is essentially the noun that is part of the matrix clause, right? So this would be like the matrix subject or the matrix object, right? The cat who ate the canary has that. And then we have our relative clause. In English, this relative clause is begun by a relativizer, is what you call this. This tells us, this flags this is a relative head. The relativizer is that in English, and this is just a complementizer, essentially, right? So if you've got a complementizer, it often looks different from a regular clausal complementizer. In English, it looks the same, but that is a regular old relativizer. You can also have a relative pronoun, which is who or which. The WH ones are relative pronouns, and we'll talk about what makes those a little bit different. And the relative pronoun is going to be co-indexed with the head noun, right? And what that means, what that little subscript I means, is that they refer to the same entity, right? So the cat and the who in who ate the canary are the same, they point to the same cat, right? They're the same index. We're going to talk a little bit about different ways that relative clauses can modify the head, and the head can be related to the relative clause. One of the most common strategies that languages use to relate the head to its relative clause is called a gap strategy. So in this strategy, we have the cat, and then we just have nothing, ate the cream, slept, right? The cat ate the cream, slept, means the cat who ate the cream slept, right? English employs a relative pronoun strategy, The cat who ate the cream, where these two are co-indexed with each other, right? So here this is the head, and this is the pronoun, right? And they're co-indexed with each other. Some languages employ an internally headed relative clause, in which case this whole thing just acts like a subject. It just becomes sort of nominalized-ish, right? So the cat ate the cream, slept, right? In this case, the head, or what we would traditionally think of as the head, is actually inside the relative clause, hence internally headed, right? So the head is inside the relative clause, but this whole thing is acting as the matrix subject, right? Another strategy that's much like that, but not exactly, is called correlative, right? So we still have the cat ate the cream, except that on the outside we have a pronoun. So this is actually a lot like the relative pronoun strategy, except that we've put the one that's not a pronoun inside the relative clause and the one that is a pronoun outside the relative clause. So that's a correlative. Paratactic is a slightly rarer strategy, but in this strategy, neither one is a pronoun, right? We have our head, and we have the internal head. This one is being modified by this whole phrase, right? So this whole phrase is modifying this, but in this case, this is just serving as the internal subject. And then we have pronoun retention, which is very rare, which is that we have a relativizer and a pronoun. So the cat that who ate the cream slept, or the cat that he ate the cream slept, things like this. Right, so this is very much like the English version, except that we have a relativizer and a relative pronoun. All right, I hope that clarifies the different types of relative clauses, and thank you for watching this video.